Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen. So I've got a little bit of a tricky one for you today. I thought I'd like to make a video on how to properly disassemble the door mirrors on the Z32 300zx. Reason being, they're quite complicated. There's no real instructions on how to do it. The factory service manual only shows you how to remove the glass, and there's no mention of how to actually disassemble the mirror. Now, if you intend on painting your vehicle or just properly painting one of these mirrors, they really need a certain amount of disassembly. Whether you go as far as I have to absolutely completely disassemble it, or whether you partially disassemble it, it's still quite a complicated process. And there's also the capacity to break stuff if you go about it in the wrong way. So I thought I'd make a bit of a video as I've just done this. I just disassembled this one, you know, very, very carefully, just sort of off my own back, just trying to work out how to do it as I went. And it was quite a process, and I thought, man, this is really going to bring a lot of people unstuck, so I should make a bit of an instructional on it. So this is this, and really how far you're going to disassemble it depends on how much you love your painter or how good a job you really want done, because you can go to a certain point and mask stuff up and it just makes it a bit awkward to paint in there, or you can disassemble it completely, which makes it very easy to paint. Again, byproduct of making something really easy to paint is you'll probably get a better job, and you know, your painter will love you a lot. But in a manly way, not in another way, okay? I'm not talking about any of that. So you can see what we've got here. So this is a mirror. This is a passenger side or driver side in the US mirror. And that is the disassembled mirror from the other side there. So we've got the main housing, two halves, the mirror glass, the moving piece that holds the mirror glass, the motor that mounts to, the sort of reinforcing section, and the pivot on the outside that allows you to fold the mirrors in manually, you know. And then we have our outside piece. It's a little bit tricky to separate this from this because the hole in the back here, which I don't know if you can see, that hole there, isn't big enough to pass this connector through, so you have to deepin this connector. And this could possibly be helpful to someone if you're changing mirrors as well, because I know midway through they change this connection on some of them. So if you happen to have a mirror with the wrong connector, I have seen people just cut them off and solder on the new connector. But if you hang with me, I'll show you how to deepin these connectors, and you'll be able to just do that and just plug it into the new one. So I guess we better get into it. Oh, and by the way, you really need gloves on. That mirror, when I disassembled it, was full of like 30 friggin' 4 years of filth built up inside there. Everything is just covered in horrid, filthy crap. So it's a pretty dirty job. I'd advise gloves. And then obviously when it's all apart, there's a big clean-up process. I've wiped most of this with paper towel and wax and grease. And then I've used a tin of brake cleaner to blast into all the crevices. And then I've used compressed air while it was still wet with brake cleaner to help dislodge stuff. And to get it all clean, like that is over there, because you will need it really clean for your painter. Otherwise he's going to be cursing you. So let's make a bit of a start on it, eh? I'll just change cameras so I can get in a little bit closer and a bit clearer. And we'll get this guy apart. Okay, so the very first thing we've got to do is we've got to remove this glass. Now, that's the glass piece from the other side. And this is the piece that's mounted in the mirror that holds it in position. So you can see the back of the glass has these little clips on it, and you can see there, that type of thing, they're just a thing shaped like that hooks over the top of something. You can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, so 2 top, 2 bottom, and 1 on the side. Now this is the piece that it attaches to on the mirror, and you can see it has the opposites, which is there, 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 and it actually has one of these on either side, even though you'll only use one, because this piece is actually reversible for left and right mirror depending on how you orient it. And you also have the drivers attached to it on the back. These are the pieces that are used to move the mirror up and down and left and right, but we'll go into that later. So as I say, we've got to remove this. Oh, there I am. We've got to remove this from this. Now, all that involves is a little bit of prying. The problem with doing this is that depending on how brittle the plastic is, there is a chance that you could break one of those plastic clips, and it's more likely going to be the one on the back of the glass. These guys here, they tend to want to like open up, you know, as they sort of pop out. So you just have to be really careful with these. I didn't break this one getting it out. It did come out reasonably easy, but you do have to use a certain amount of force. So, and you generally need to start from the bottom. So just sort of push your mirror as far as you can. You get it open like that, and I'm just using a standard sort of a prying tool here on this. So we'll just start levering this up from underneath to get behind it. Well, ideally what we want to try and do is get down in behind that piece, just so we're not forcing it as badly. But you know, it is, like I say, it is a bit tricky. You do have to just kind of use a bit of force and just be a little bit careful with it. Hopefully get it off without breaking it. Alright, well, no, I think that was right there. Oh yeah, there we go. So they just popped. That was those two. You can sort of seeing there. That one and that one have just released. Now we've got, as I say, one on the side. Actually, the one on the side looks like it released at the same time. Get a bit of a torch. Oh, I'll just push that up a bit. You can see that clip there. There it is, has also released. So now we just got to get the back ones off. So what I would probably do here, you can just kind of lever it this way and go like that, but what I'll probably do is try and slide something in there, just basically the pry tool, I reckon, so that you can more accurately get next to the piece to just reduce your chance of kind of breaking it. That's one. And that's the other one. As I say, here they are. So that's that guy out. So if you're just replacing your glass, that's all you have to do. It's really not that hard to get the glass out. And that leaves us with this. Now, by the look of this, it's actually a fair bit cleaner than the other side, but you'll see there is a lot of filthy schmoo in there. Now, again, if you are painting, you really need to get the glass out and clean all this crap out of there, because at a minimum that stuff will be blowing out while you're trying to get paint on it, and it'll just be buggering up your paint. So we've got to get all that shit out of there, and realistically the only way to do that is to you know, disassemble the thing. So at this stage, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to separate this piece here from the back section. All right, so we're going to separate this from this. They just, you know, they just go together like that. So it's just a matter of getting these screws out of here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. maybe 5 screws. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5 screws. Okay. So let's get those guys out. Okay. So I've just got a bit of a paint mixing cup with some wax and grease remover sitting in the bottom of it. And I'm just throwing all the screws in that because they are filthy. Now we should be able to just take this piece straight off, I think, from memory. Oh no, one more screw, Trevor, you goose. Right down the bottom, hiding down there. There we go. Push that guy out. Come out there, baby. Come on. There it is. Now we should be able to get it apart. Alright, so stage 1, as I say, pretty dirty, pretty bloody dirty. But at least this, you're starting to get the opportunity to, you know, make things a little bit more accessible, again, for your painting. Alright, on to the next piece. So you can just quickly separate this from the sort of arm housing that mounts onto your door, if that's all you want to do, and that will give you pretty good access for painting. But there are, you know, other issues, shall we say. So I might just do that quickly, guys, because it's probably as far as some of you will probably want to go. So we'll take that. That one. And that one. So what that gives us now, it separates these two pieces completely, which is very, very handy. Now to get this cable through here, or sorry, get a bit of slack on it because there's no way we can actually get it through yet. Take off this strain relief, and what I'll do with this, I'll actually disconnect it from the wire, put it back on, just so you don't lose the orientation and where it goes. Put that guy back there. Now that gives us a little bit of slack here to be able to feed this through. You can also take this guy off here. It's sort of in the way, not ridiculously, but you know, it is sort of in the way. And then we've got a bit of a rubber here that you can lift up and then pop this wire, which does have quite a bit of sealer around it where it comes through, so you might have to replace some of that sealer when you reassemble it, if you so desire. Okay, so now we can, now that we've threaded underneath that, we'll be able to just pull straight through here. Alright, so we'll just pull that through a little bit, like so, and we'll just put this guy back on again, just so we keep everything where it's going. I don't know why that's got such a big bend in it there. It should actually be flat. That looks a little bit damaged to me. So we'll throw that back on there, just to keep it all as one piece. Now, you cannot get this connector through the hole in here. The hole is way smaller than the connector, so obviously when this was assembled, they slipped the connector on afterwards. So if you stay tuned until the end, I'll show you how to de-pin this connector so that you can completely separate these two pieces. Otherwise, you can't. That's all there is to it. It just stays hanging on there, and it really kind of gets in the way, particularly if you're going to be painting this section. you know, you can obviously you can mask this up and kind of deal with it, but it'd be better if it wasn't there. And it's really not that hard to de-pin if you know how to do it. And if you've de-pinned connectors before, you'll know the secret is all in knowing how to do it. All right, so we'll just leave that like that for now. So the next thing I'm going to do, which you don't really have to do if you don't desire to, is I'm going to remove this whole motor assembly from this main part of the mirror, just so that you're not having to mask it up and deal with it when you're in the painting stage. And plus, again, there's a lot of crap in amongst it, and when you start spraying, it's all going to want to blow out and get into your paint. Plus, it, you know, you really need to get in there and clean up around the motor area, because there is a lot of grit and stuff like that. And just for the longevity of a component like this, it really needs to be cleaned before it's reassembled. Okay, now this is a little bit tricky. The first thing we have to do is get that connector there off. Oh, and you can see we've got a little bit of a tab on the top. I'll just reposition my hands. And you have to push that down this way, right? Like so, just to kind of release that. And then that will slide off, but it is a little bit hard to get it to come off because it's been on there for a very long time. So you kind of have to release the top. I don't know if you can see it moving in there when I squeeze it. Come on, baby. Like that. That'll lift up and unlocks, and then you've got to get it back off. Reason being, there is a screw in behind it, which is really, really hard to get to. And without removing that, I don't think you can't do it. And also, you really do need to separate it for cleaning purposes and everything. All right. So you can see I'm just pushing down on the lock. Get it unlocked. Oh, I'm just trying to push the connector off. There is a rubber collar on it, which makes it seal really well, but also makes it grip really well. So a little bit of jiggling action, and it should come off, maybe. You never know, guys. You just never know with this sort of stuff. All right, there we go. So that just comes off out like that. And you can see that's our lock on the top. It's pretty hard to see it, but that just flexes up. And that's our rubber insulator, a rubber weather seal sort of thing in there. And if you look behind it, you can sort of see the screw that I'm talking about. All right. Right down in there. But first thing we got to do is remove some other bits. Now, our mirror adjuster here, this guy here, we can remove that. There's just one screw, and then we have to just carefully prise it off the motor adjusters. So all you have here to adjust your mirror, these things here wind up and down on a plastic thread. So there's one on the bottom and one on the side, and that's all you need to give you up and down and left and right tilt. And that is basically a pivot ball in the middle there. So what we'll do here, we'll undo the pivot ball. I'll just use a hand screwdriver. All this plastic stuff, you've got to be a little bit careful with it. Get that out, drop it in the goop, and now you can see that just releases it straight up like that, and it's now only held in with these guys down here. Now they are actually kind of clipped into this body here, and you can try and prise them off that, but they also seem to be able to be removed quite easily just by pulling them up, and they just kind of slowly disengage from the threads in that same way that when you force a power mirror to move, you hear it kind of go. Well, it's the same as that. You're just forcing it over the sort of the top of the threads. So as you saw, that just came straight off. That's our pivot ball that I was talking about, and that's our piece. It came apart with no dramas, nothing broke, But you can see how grubby this is. And like I say, this is the cleaner of the two. This is definitely the cleaner of the two. The other one was significantly grubbier than this. So that's what we have now there. And if you'll notice, we still can't get to that screw down in there. Like, you can sort of see it, but you literally can't get to it. So what we have to do now is release this whole sort of unit, this whole motor unit, because that is actually the motor. This yellowed plastic kind of thing, that is the motor. This section here, this big chunky thing that looks like a motor, that's not actually a motor. That's just sort of a spring-loaded mechanical device for pivoting your mirrors in and out. Even though the wiring loom does go through it, it's not actually motorized on these mirrors. Apparently on later Z32s it is motorized, but they're very, very rare from my understanding. And so to get this out, basically we have to remove this screw down here. Now this screw was completely frozen on my other mirror, and I had to do a bit of trickery to get this up and exposed so I could get some lock pliers on it. But hopefully this one won't be, and I'll be able to remove it, because if we can remove that, this will actually come out pretty easy and give us access to that last screw that we need to remove. Thank you, doke. Wish me luck. Oh, it's moving. This is fantastic. Alrighty. Alright, so I'll get that out of there. Blue Loctite on this too, by the way, guys. That's why it was quite hard to remove from the other one. Most of these threaded screws have blue Loctite on them. It's only the sort of self-tapping type that go into the plastic that don't. But as I say, pretty much every other one does. So now this should just lift up, and there's two locks that it sort of slides into. So it's a lift up and then pull back. Right. Come on, baby. Bit of a jiggle, guys. It's a bit of a jiggle. Come on out. Come on. You can do it. There we go. And that's that piece. As I say, you can see there the sort of tooth locks that just pop down over something, then it pushes in at the bottom. And that's the guys here. So they just drop down over those little teeth, and then that screw holds it at the bottom. And that's your entire motor assembly that controls all your movement. Again, you can see how putrid it is. So we'll just toss this one to one side and keep going. Now, as you see, that gives us access to this last screw that's keeping this assembly attached to the mirror back. And that's it in there. As I say, without removing that piece, you really can't get to that. I ended up on the other one where I couldn't get this screw out. I ended up kind of, forcing the plastic, and I used a bit of a strange flexi kind of Phillips head screwdriver to try and get in there and remove it. And I did slowly manage to remove it. As I say, so I could use lock pliers on this to undo it, because it just simply would not undo with the screwdriver, and I was going to end up destroying it, just the way it is. So we should now be able to remove this. So all we have now, to get this section out, because it's actually mostly held in with the screws that keep the sort of clamshell parts together, but we've got that one, and we've got another one down here. So we'll get these out. That one there. Now this should just lift out like so. Okay. So now you can see we have our two mirror halves. As horrid and dirty as they are, that's just greasy crap. So as far as painting goes, mate, we're all set. We can just give these halves to the painter, and it's up to him whether he puts them back together before he paints it in one piece, or whether he sort of paints them separately. So that's that. Now, this is where it gets tricky, guys. So now we've got this, and we've got this. Again, this is really putrid. I would strongly advise to get in there with a brush and some bloody brake cleaner or degreaser or whatever, and just get all this clean before you reassemble it, because it is just putrid. So you can't get this connector back through here again because the connector is bigger than the hole, and you can't get this connector back through there because the connector is bigger than the hole. And we really want this off, so this is separate, just because it's a pain in the ass having this heavy bloody thing dangling off it in order to get it sort of sorted out. So what we've got to do, let's send that down there, and we've got to de-pin this connector. I'll just grab a couple of tools, any basic stuff that you'll probably have, and we'll get this de-pinned. Alright guys, there are two stages to de-pinning this connector, and I'm going to do all of it with just a point. So that can be a scriber, you know, anything that's just got a point on it will allow you to do all of this. This is probably a little bit fat, but I can still do it with it, you know. I've actually got a thinner one. Actually, I'll go and grab a thinner one, but it just shows you I did the last one with this. So that was just out of a set of bloody hooky pointy things, as you know. It's really a basic sort of a tool. Nah, I've decided to stick with it after having a look at my other tool that's actually fatter than this. Alright, so the first thing you need to do, guys, is take a lot of photos of this connector. You'll notice you've got 3 pins on the bottom, and you've got 2 pins on the top. You've got 5 wires, obviously. So if you want, just to make it easier for you for your photographs, I tend to sort of orient the wires more closely to how they sit in the connector. Alright, so this is, as I say, it's my left-hand mirror. So just take some photos of your connector like this. So you've got the, you know, your 2 and then your 3, showing the colors where they sit, the orientation. You can see that end slot isn't used on the bottom. There's actually 4 slots but only 3 pins in it, and which color wires go where into the slot, and also how this is. I can just use this video to tell me what I need to know, so I won't bother taking photos of it. But with the previous one, I took many photos of the connector like this, just so there's no confusion when it gets reassembled. So the first thing you need to do if you are going to de-pin this connector is remove the locking tabs. So this is a locking tab, and this is a locking tab. Now they don't completely remove, they just unclip. So what you do with those is you just get under the back of here and just kind of prise it up. When you saw that, I just did a bit of that. You'll notice on the side it's got like a flexi hinge thing here. So what you can do, and what I like to do, is just get that properly unclipped from the bottom, because it'll still want to hold it in. So it just ends up like that, guys. Just be careful, you don't want to break these little side bits, because it just makes it not want to sit back on properly. And that's sort of how it is there. So you want to get these things out, because that's the bit that actually locks the connector into the housing. So you just have to sort of pull it back and lift it up, and then those guys will just kind of pop out. Now, same thing for the one on the back. I generally kind of leave it from the sides, not the middle. That's what they'll tend to pop out a bit easier, like that. Again, that one's up. Pull it back, and then release it, and then just slide it up out of the way. Again, those little teeth there, that's what's locking your wire in. Now we're free to get the wires out, but we have to actually release them from the tab that holds them inside of the connector. Now, hopefully we can see close enough with this. Now, with each connector, there is a plastic piece. I just got to get myself so I can get the pointer in there. There's a little plastic locking tab that's on the inside of each piece, and it's down here. Right, it's down in that spot, and it's a little bit of plastic that flaps against the side and stops the connector pulling out. So the actual lock is part of the housing, not the connector. All right, so that flap sticks up and jams against the side of the connector with a little bit of a tooth on the end of it. So what we've got to do is we've got to lever that off and then just pull the connector out. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. So I'm just going to go down in there till I engage the piece with the tip, and then just pull it back this way. You know, just lever it back that way slightly whilst pulling on the connector. And then straight away it disengages and the connector comes out. But you saw how easy that was to do. So if you get everything in the right place, they come out really easily. And a lot of your Nissan connectors are like this. So get yourself some purchase on the back so you can just keep a little bit of tension on the wire. Go down in beside that connector, that pin. There's our pin there. We're just going to slip down in there till you'll feel the plastic tab. Push down on it and then pull your hand away, and you'll feel it release from the pin, and then pull the pin out like so. Just remember the orientation of these when you're putting them in. If you put them in upside down, like that way around, they won't lock in properly. They have to be the same way so the locking tab can properly interface into that little hole there, because if that's obviously not there on the other side. All right, so that's two, and the same process for getting these guys out. Get your finger in, pull a little bit of tension. It's the same deal, it moves to the inside. So there's our pin that we're trying to remove there. We just slip down beside it until we hit the flap. You'll feel it. Pull it away, and at the same time pulling your wire, and it'll just come straight out. That one, and you'll get quite good at this, guys, once you sort it. Now, most Nissan connectors are like this kind of. They're fairly easy, but if you don't know how to do them, they can be quite daunting. Now, I'm not an auto electrician. I've just kind of figured all this stuff out on my own from looking at things, and I have done a lot of auto electrical work in my life, wiring up cars, etc. But I am not a professional. So it's possible to work it out on your own. You've just got to take the time to look at the connector and say, well, how the hell is this held in? There must be a way. Anything that's assembled can be disassembled. Just remember that, guys. Even if it's, only designed to be assembled one way and not disassemblable, you can probably still do it most of the time. All right, so now we're laughing. We can now take this through. I'll just pull the camera back up. I brought it right down for this. All right, we can now just pull that through like so. Put that guy to one side after we clean it. And then there we have it, guys. Obviously this all needs a hell of a clean up. So when it comes time to paint your mirror and talking to your painter, you can hand him these, obviously after they've been cleaned up, and say, well, here you go, mate. And he'll just go, wow, that's awesome. Thanks, for easy to do a good job. So there you have it, guys. That's how you completely disassemble and deepin the connector on a door mirror on a Z32 300zx. I hope you like the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment because it helps me so much with the algorithm. And as always, guys, I'll bloody well see you on the next one. Cheers.